on this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.
He has a better command of the offense. You're seeing the steps that you want to see for him to be successful.
I'm a big vibes guy, just in general. I'm pro vibes. And one of the things that you see a lot within this New Orleans Saints locker room is vibes.
How many times on this show in the offseason did I say they got to get Tyler Shuck better weapons?
Yeah.
And I think they have done that. I think it's a major upgrade.
No, I need you to be like ball and chain, new team, get out there, do your thing. You're just like, whoa, hold on. I'm a millennial. I ain't doing that.
And welcome into the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, the We Are Back edition. No, it's the OTA edition. As we're taking a look at everything going on with the New Orleans Saints over the course of the offseason, I am Ross Jackson. This is the illustrious return of Doug Mouton, and we're very excited to be here with you today.
You know what we have seen now?
What's that?
We have seen our first look at the 2026 Saints in uniform doing stuff together.
Football.
Football is back. I know they don't do a lot. There's no pads. There's not a lot happening, but they're back. And look, the first thing I want to start with, and you said this on Channel 4 and the 10, I said, what's the one thing you saw in OTAs? And you said the vibes.
Yeah.
You feel it, don't you?
Yeah, I'm a big vibes guy, just in general. I'm pro vibes. And one of the things that you see a lot within this New Orleans Saints locker room is vibes. Everybody's getting along. Everybody's feeling good. And we saw that last year. And we pointed it out before the season, too, about kind of the feel-good nature of everything. And it became really, really important as that tough stretch of the opening part of the season kind of, played itself out. And then, things started to kind of head in the right direction. We're seeing that again here. Everything from the together, the camaraderie building, charity events, as well as the, going out spear fishing or bow fishing, whatever it is they did and all that. Like, we're seeing all of that already start to play itself out. And these are players that are very excited about what 2026 holds.
I had an Uber driver. I was getting my car fixed. And the guy in the Uber, and he recognized me from this job, and he said, you know what? I am sure we have the right quarterback. I'm not sure we have the right coach, okay? And it was a guy who I think was a little older than me. And I told him, I said, here's the thing that is throwing off anybody over 40 and definitely anybody over 50 is that Kellen Moore is new school. Yeah. And it is a different attitude and a different vibe. Sean Payton was old school. Yes. And it was a one-man dictatorship. And look, Sean Payton was a spectacular coach, won a Super Bowl in a lot of games.
Yep. And
Kellen
got
Moore,
an extension.
Yes. Kellen Moore wants cooperation. He wants buy-in. He wants input. He wants everybody to have those positive vibes. Yep. And he is preaching a message that is so different than for somebody my generation when the coach was like throwing erasers at you. Yes, this is I want you to be happy to do your job. Yeah. And you are really feeling that in the locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had several players unsolicited talk about how excited they are as new arrivals to be here in New Orleans, to be a part of the culture. You might say, well, they have to say that. They're on the team. I get that. But they also don't have to say anything at all. Right. They don't have to say it whatsoever. And then, of course, one of the things that Chris Olave talked about at the beginning of OTAs was them all coming together and sharing stories about the best team they were ever a part of and finding what they could take and install in their culture as a part of that. I love that approach.
Yeah, I love that approach too. And look, it is super positivity. Whether you like it or not, it is super positive in Metairie, and it's tangible. I feel it too. Absolutely. All right, let's show you what's on the menu for this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. This always makes me hungry at the wrong time.
I showed up
because
hungry today.
The one thing we don't have is food. All right, but here's what we do have. Our large plates tonight. We're going to talk about the running backs. We'll talk about that in a minute. These two guys, will they coexist, or will Alvin Kamara be here? And we just brought up the vibes. We're talking a lot more about Kellen Moore, and then some small plates.
Yeah, we'll take a look at Cam Jordan, what his future potentially holds. Contract offer is out. When can we see some potential movement on that? The rookie, Jordan Tyson, why isn't he playing? We'll break it all down. Don't worry, nothing to panic about, but we'll dive into some of that with our good friends that are going to be here tonight as well.
Yes, and we're going to show you who they are right now. It is Catherine Terrell, our all-time favorite from ESPN. Oh, I shouldn't say that because we're going to have other guests, and I will have already said that.
Nope, all-time favorite.
If they're why, but it's already out.
All-time favorite.
And the ridiculousness that is Ricardo Lecomte. And you know what I'm making, Ross?
What are you going to make?
Where are you going this summer? Do you have a little trip planned?
Maybe taking a little trip over to Ireland.
To Ireland. And Jamie and I, Jamie's my wife, we went to Ireland a few years ago. It was spectacular. I saw you talking to Charlie Smith to get tips.
I'm getting some tips.
That's a smart move.
Yeah.
That's a veteran
That's a
reporter.
guy that knows about Ireland over there.
He's heard of it. Yes, that's a veteran reporter move. We're making a drink called an Irish Maid. I've never made it. I have no idea. It's Irish whiskey. We're going to find out.
I love it. And there's a cucumber on this. Are we going to have a cucumber?
Yeah, I am doing a garnish. And some muddling. I'm not a big muddler, but I'm going to do some muddling.
We got time for that.
We're going to, yes, today is the day. And this is a topic you wanted to talk about, and it's the big change in defense is how the Saints are using safeties.
Yeah, absolutely. Big time shift here. You're seeing a safety that played 16 games as kind of this free roaming field safety last year, now moving down potentially to the slot. That's the expectation, playing the Alante Taylor role, the star defender. And then now you got Julian Blackmon back, who's this rangy coverage safety. And then, of course, your defensive leader and Justin Reed talked about how all these guys can coexist on the field together.
Yeah, and play a lot together. And to me, Justin Reed is the leader of that positivity you were talking about. To me, he is the guy ringing the bell for be happy.
I'll say him and Chase Young. Isaiah Saulbert, the young linebacker, had an interception on the third day of OTAs. This is during the third team, 7-on-7 reps, an hour into practice, and the first two players off the sideline to celebrate with Isaiah Saulbert were the veterans in Justin Reed and Chase Young. I think little things like that really move the needle for you.
We're doing our last call later, and Chase Young is my last call, and you stole from me, but that's okay. You didn't know. I didn't advertise it. Okay, look, the two topics, and I want to touch them briefly. Cam Jordan first.
Yeah.
We know a contract's out there. Do you have any gut for how this thing plays out?
I think that this is the one that's going to continue to play out slowly. There's just no rush here, right? Cam Jordan is somebody that played in the system last year. He's a veteran in the NFL. We're seeing more and more across the league. And sometimes veterans don't sign when they're required to go to minicamp.
Right.
And sometimes veterans don't sign to go to OTAs. They wait until training camp. And so I think there's a little bit of that. I also wouldn't be surprised if, honestly, there's three different angles at this for Cam Jordan. Returning to the Saints, going to another team, or the potential for TV or media to potentially pop up for him. So he's in a really unique position, waiting to get all of that kind of stuff figured out before the final dominoes fall. There's a contract offer on the table. There's time for this to play out.
You think he doesn't know?
I think that he's waiting to find out if he knows for sure. I think that he has a really good idea. I think there's a good chance.
And you're right. He might not have gotten the TV deal that he thinks might be coming.
Right.
And that
could be something else on the way, all that, although Russell Wilson just soaked up some of it and all those other things. Like, the opportunities are shrinking, and so maybe that has an impact on how this thing moves.
And Alvin Kamara, under contract, the Saints are under the cap. They don't have to do anything. Kellen Moore sure implied like he thinks they might. At minicamp, at OTA number 3. He didn't say that. That's me reading between the lines. What is your guess? Will Kamara be here when training camp starts?
I think he'll be here when training camp starts. I think the question is he on an adjusted contract, or are those conversations still happening? I think the biggest thing is going to be, what is his, let's say, snap share in that backfield? And is the pay commensurate with what that role is? And I think that's what the Saints have to get figured out. The fact that they haven't figured it out yet is kind of uncanny to me. It feels like a thing that you probably know about one of your star players, but they're taking their time, they're figuring it out. I think that he's here at training camp, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's on the field in 2026. There's still a lot that's got to get figured out between now and then.
Yeah, and honestly, we could talk about this for 10 minutes, but we're just going to keep spinning around that same circle.
Yeah, because there's so much of the we don't know yet. There's true uncertainty here. I think it's the real takeaway.
I agree 100%. And there was a lot of fun stuff that happened at OT. So let's get to that. Let's bring the guests in. And our guests have now joined us. That is Ricardo LeCompte, of course, from here at WWL-TV.
How you doing? It's great to meet you.
Meeting Ross for the first time. This, Catherine Terrell, our all-time favorite, covers the Saints, does a great job.
All-time favorite.
All-time favorite.
I love it.
All-time favorite, and maybe most frequent guest.
And certainly most frequent guest. And as the most frequent guest, you get to start this segment with everything that everyone needs to know about OTAs. No, I'm just kidding. But what is it that you're seeing from Tyler Shuck right now, of course, like moving into and embracing the leadership role? How have you seen him do that? And what are you seeing from him in that area?
Well, I think I've said this honestly since last summer, that Shuck kind of gets it. He knows what he's supposed to do to be a leader. Even when he had just gotten here as a rookie, he was already getting players together for workouts, even when he wasn't the starting quarterback. And now I feel like you see him more settled. What's funny is you see him a lot less. I noticed that the other day during open locker room. He doesn't really have the time to just hang out like he did last year. But that's a good thing. He's got more responsibilities now. He has a better command of the offense. I know we haven't seen a lot during OTAs, but I think you're seeing the steps that you want to see for him to be successful. We'll just see what it translates to.
Yeah, agree 100%. And we're hearing it from guys too, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. And it's not just the rookie guys who come in and go, you know what? I'm supposed to say the right things about, I really want to play with Tyler Shuck. He's great or whatever. And you're hearing that as well from the free agents that come in to this locker room, like a Travis Etienne, like a David Edwards, who asked specifically to have his locker right next to Tyler Shuck and got his wish granted to kind of get to know more about the quarterback and kind of build that relationship. But yes, I think you see him taking that next step as a leader. And like he connects with everybody across the aisle. Like it's people from different backgrounds, whatever. And it's like, everybody is on the same like wavelength in terms of going like, he's a good guy. Like I really do genuinely like his character, how he comes off as a not only as a person, but as a leader of this team. And I think that just bodes well when you're trying to find who's going to be the guy, who's going to be the face of this franchise. And it seems like slowly he's taking those steps to be that. And the players and his teammates at least are buying into that he could be that guy.
Yeah, he has a kind of a czar of vibes vibe. You know what I mean?
Okay, all right.
He's the guy that
You went through his vibe probably like 15 times
well,
already.
that was on purpose. That was on purpose.
Yeah.
That was on purpose.
Which I like.
It was a big thing.
You look
as we
hip.
talked about it. You know what I mean?
Return of the show. It's the vibe show.
It's the vibe of the show.
What did I say? I said I'm a big vibes guy.
Yeah.
Be a big vibes guy.
You owned vibes from the start.
You did.
From the start.
And I'm not saying it's a bad
the thing
thing.
about it is that he is one of the guys that he sets the tone.
Yeah.
Is that better?
No,
he sets
use
the tone
vibes. No.
in terms of how it is that he does it. But like he's a big part of the reason why there is a feel-good mentality. Because it's hard not to feel good seeing him feel good, right? As he walks in and he talked about how he wants to take on the leadership role. He's taking the bull by the horns in that area. He's not worried about stepping on toes anymore. There's no seniority to keep in mind or whatever. He's the starter. And that's one of the big reasons why maybe this team feels a bit further along right now than it did at this time last year.
In week 3 of OTAs, David, first of all, Travis Etienne held his big media circus with everybody. And then Ricardo and I broke off. We're talking to David Edwards, and David Edwards said all the things you said about Tyler Shuck. And then after he was done, I walked back, and Travis Etienne, by then, the cameras were going, he was just talking. And I asked him a couple of questions about Tyler Shuck, and it struck me, and I told that to Travis. I said, the words coming out of your mouth are almost the exact same words that David Edwards just said. Yeah. And it was really 2 points. One, what Ricardo said, that they like him as a person. And two, that these two veterans both think he is way ahead from a football standpoint, and especially at the line of scrimmage, getting what he's supposed to get, way ahead of where they would have expected a second-year quarterback to be.
Yeah.
And that's super encouraging right now.
Right, and David Edwards made that example. He gave that example. There was one play at OTAs where he went to the line and saw what the defense was in and made
7-on-7 in OTAs.
And made a check right there. And imagine what they can now do and what he can call and the potential of what this offense can do if you're maximizing what Tyler Shuck can do and having the play calling of Kellen Moore. I mean, that is optimism and excitement in its own, seeing what those two could do on Sundays.
Yeah, and Catherine, I think we could probably speak a little bit to the idea that you don't often see quarterbacks show up at OTAs making checks at the line of scrimmage and all of the motion and play action that they incorporate.
Yeah,
like there is a little bit.
Thing.
There is a little bit of that with Kellen Moore's system and how he likes to implement it.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about last year's OTAs, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Shuck was getting some flack because I think there were a lot of either incompletions during 7-on-7, which shouldn't happen with no pass rush, or he was holding the ball too long.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff during training camp about that.
It was a narrative, I think, that kept getting repeated for a few weeks and settled down, but now you don't hear that because you're looking at a guy that is so comfortable in this offense now going into year 2 when like I said, just has a better command of things. So it's funny to look back at,
that's a good point.
Rookie Tyler Shuck and where Shuck is now.
And those things were true. He was holding the ball too long.
He was throwing it away in 7-on-7.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
It's stunning. It's stunning, the difference in 1 year. All right. Anything you want to say in here, like the door is wide open for any subject. One thing you saw during OTAs, a position group or a player or something that you thought, I love that, something that was super positive that struck you in the OTAs.
I think this is going to come up a lot, and maybe in this segment, but I liked what I saw from Jonas Sanker so far. I think there are quite a few young players that there's a lot to be optimistic about. And Ross and I just talked to Brandon Staley for a while, and we were asking a lot of questions about Sanker, and I thought he had some really good insight about why they chose him for this role and how he's grown. He said, look at the last 6 games of the season. Those are the games you want to watch with him because he took a big step forward. So now, of course, I want to go back and watch. But the last 6 games of the season were good for a lot of people. I think it displayed this, the momentum and confidence. I was trying to think of the word, but confidence. A lot of players, I think, gained a lot of confidence that they are now kind of projecting into this year.
Yeah, that's big.
What was it for you?
I'll say at the safety position, for me, it's the return of Julian Blackmon and how comfortable he already looks.
Yeah.
The Saints had 20 turnovers last year. 11 of those were fumbles recovered. It was the second most in the NFL. They were 1 behind another team that had 12. And so they were right there. But they also only had 20 total turnovers. So that leaves like 9 interceptions on the season. That was towards the bottom half of the league. Every of the playoff teams last year, 9 of them finished with more turnovers forced than New Orleans. And you wonder how much Julian Blackmon, a noted ball hawk, post-free safety, open, rangy player, could have potentially contributed to them last year. Not that Jonas Sanker did a bad job, as we just talked about. He got better and better and better throughout the year. But that was Julian Blackmon's role, to be that deep post safety that could take the football away. And so now you get him and Jonas Sanker on the field at the same time, and you wonder just what you could see from this team going into 2026 with that 3 safety set.
I was watching him in week 3, and I remember thinking, oh, yeah, I loved this guy last year, too. And it's almost like, oh, yeah. And it'll be fun to see. What was it for you, Ricardo?
Yeah, I think it's just a general overall, I just feel like a lot of players, a lot of coaches just feel comfortable in the second season. I think a lot of people last year, when we were kind of just in that offseason program, we just didn't know what to expect. Like where Kellen Moore decides, hey, we're going to do a bunch of team building activities, as you guys were mentioning in the first segment, and it was just like, wait a minute, who does that? No, I need you to be like ball and chain, new team, get out there, do your thing. You're just like, whoa, hold on, I'm a millennial. I ain't doing that. This isn't old.
The Rams canceled minicamp altogether.
They're canceling minicamp. There's half these teams are going, we're not doing the final day, and it was just kind of it was kind of just weird, kind of seeing that because it wasn't the way that things were run at the facility prior to Kellen Moore there. Now in the second year, I think we're more used to that.
Yeah.
I think Kellen Moore's more comfortable in his skin. I think a lot of the defensive players are starting to understand what Brandon Staley wants to do in this defense. So you're seeing guys like Justin Reed really have a grasp of what he's doing in the back end. Maybe some of the defensive ends understand, all right, in this 3-4 system, what are we trying to do here? So you see Chase Young having, maybe Carl Granderson's going to have another breakout year. Offensively, you're kind of, again, I feel like Kellen Moore's going to get more into his bag this year. I think just overall, just because everyone just knows what they're doing and what to expect, they know that there isn't like a teaching. You're still teaching and installing, but there isn't that the learning curve is a lot more where now it's like, let's take that next step as an offense, as a defense, and then you just feel that vibe during the offseason program.
Kellen Moore comfortable in his skin. That's a great line. Really I think that is 100% true, and I feel that in a big way. For me, it's the whole wide receiver group. How many times on this show in the offseason did I say they got to get Tyler Shuck better weapons? And I think they have done that. I think it's a major upgrade. 2 guys that I loved watching at OTAs, and I don't know where they're going to fit in the pecking order because it seems like the top 3 we know. Jordan Tyson we haven't seen yet. Devon Vele we've seen a little bit, but he figures to be the 3. But I loved watching Jalen Polk, and I loved watching Bryce Lance. Lance, the ball seemed to find him a disproportionate number of times. I wonder if that's going to continue, and he was quickness. I thought that from Polk, too. I think you've got a bunch of good options and way more than you had last year. And I love the way they've rebuilt that spot.
Yeah, the biggest question is going to be how many wide receivers do they actually keep, or how many wide receivers convince them to be kept around.
Yeah, can they use even? But it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, 100%.
Coming out of last year.
Very different than last year.
180 from last year.
Yes, 180. And that struck me during this because I love Jalen Polk watching him and talking to him. So we'll see. Let's flip that around. What was it that maybe you're like, okay, this is the Achilles heel. This could be the problem. This is the boil water advice.
Why do you got to kill the vibe right now on this show?
I'm killing the vibe. I'm killing the vibe. Vibe's going crack. Ricardo, you first this time.
I think it's special teams. And I having that loss, of your returner. You know, like having like who's going to be Rashid Shaheed, who's going to be the next one. You had such an explosive guy back there as your kick returner. Charlie Smith had a great story of him filling in at that tail end of last season, being able to become the starting kicker. Does that carry over to next year? Because again, there's still that inconsistency that he has at times. Like that's still kind of a concern for me heading into this upcoming season.
Sure.
All right, who wants up next?
I can go next.
Oh, you're in.
Yeah.
Okay, mine is the pass rush. I think that's been something that has been concerning to me for the last few months, and I don't know where they're going to go with it. There's players that we keep saying, well, they have potential, they could have a good season. That's how I feel about Carl Granderson. But I feel like it's very top-heavy. I think Chase Young could have a fantastic season, truly. When we're talking to Brandon Staley, he was kind of saying that Young knows that there are higher expectations now after having 10 sacks, despite missing 5 games. That's very impressive. Yeah. But after him, even if Cam Jordan does come back, you know, this is not 22-year-old Cam Jordan.
Right.
Can he repeat last season? No, if he can, then they'll be just fine. But, you know, I do think that after Young, it's kind of a question as who steps up next.
Yeah, that's legit. Look, a lot of us thought they might take Reuben Bain, They have not made a big addition to the pass rush. That is a legit concern. What is it for you?
No, you go. You always go last.
Okay, look, for me, it's the similar thing. And look, it's the reason I don't think the Saints are a Super Bowl team yet.
Yeah.
Is that there was too many things to fix in 2 off seasons. They did not get to pass rush. I think that's legit. And they didn't get to cornerback. We've got 2 corners, Kool-Aid McKinstry and Quincy Riley. Can they be the guy? Can they take a step forward? Sure, maybe, hopefully. There's not a lot of depth behind them. Cornerback, you got to have legitimate cornerback play to play in the NFL as much as people throw the ball. And I think cornerback is legit. I don't think they fixed all their problems. Cornerback and pass rush are 2 areas that definitely concern me.
Yeah. I think for me, the thing that I'm looking at has to do, it kind of blends those 2 things and a little bit of what we were talking about with Charlie Smith as well. And then I'll add in the running back position. I think there is an over-reliance right now on people doing things we've never seen them do before.
Yes.
And like, to me, that's one of the biggest things. Can Carl Granderson not have that October, November slump that we usually see? Like, you look at his monthly numbers and it's crazy how like September, December, January are fantastic. October, November, where is he on the stat sheet, right? Like and he's talked about that before as something he's got to get fixed. The development of the corners, the development on special teams. Barryon Brown could be the guy. Is he the guy? We got to see, right? He's a rookie. And then similarly with the running back room, if it's not Alvin Kamara, then who's behind Travis Etienne Jr., right? I mean, they have a lot of guys with promise, kind of like the edge rusher room. Devin Neal, Audric Estimé gifted the New Orleans Saints their first 30-plus yard runs for many, many years from a running back. And so that's all great, but you're still waiting to see something you haven't seen from them as being like solid tandem number 2s because they're either in their second or third years in the NFL. And so I think that for me, it's an over-reliance on the unknown, which happens when you have a young team. It's not necessarily something that's long-lasting, but something that for 2026, it raises an eyebrow.
I was going to say, most of the favorites that are going to be in contention for the Super Bowl, it's like known commodities.
Oh, of course.
And the Saints don't have enough of those.
Yeah,
not quite there
them,
yet.
But you're right, not enough. Yeah. Exactly.
You know what it's time for?
Last call! And it's time for the last call here, where we give you a drink and a think. And Doug is going to be making the drink for us today. Doug, what you got on the menu for?
Well, this is called an Irish Maid. Ross is making a little trip to Ireland. Talked to Charlie Smith about it. So we're going to make a drink. I have never made this drink. I don't know what we're going to get. This is a Northern Irish whiskey called Bushmills. This is their black label. It's their better one. It's awesome. We're going to add some elderflower, which is bartender's ketchup. This is a 2-to-1 simple syrup, which I made at home. And this is a bag of lemons that I juiced earlier today. We're going to mix all that together. And I have muddled cucumbers. I'm not a big muddler, but I did some muddling.
Oh, wow.
It's already been muddled in here.
Right.
I love it.
That's it.
Very great. All right, cool.
great.
So
We'll see.
as you get started with mixing the drink, so as Doug makes the drinks, we're going to give you a think. So we'll run through and kind of give you our last takes for the day. Catherine, why don't you start us off with your last call?
Okay, so a few months ago, we were in here talking about who's going to be the new team captain or captains next year.
Yeah.
I still think that it's kind of up in the air, but we were asking Brandon Staley about it, and he was saying it's going to be different, but different doesn't mean it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And so he was just kind of talking through it, and he said they had talked to Chase Young about how they expect him to be in a bigger leadership role this year. So maybe that's a preview of what's to come. I guess we'll find out when they vote in a few months.
Yeah, that'll be a big one. I mean, I think there's some shoe-ins for this, but I'm really, really interested to see how the captain election, if you will, goes. Ricardo, what you got for us?
We were talking about vibes, how great everything feels. Vibes.
Vibes. Oh, that's a new word. I haven't heard that one before.
I'm telling you, I like that you use vibes. Like, they understand like why the vibes are great, why everyone's such a great, like everyone feels so positive about this season. One big reason is because this division is winnable, and you're looking at the teams already here. You have Carolina. You think Carolina could probably match what they were doing with Bryce Young still at quarterback and be able to copy the success of getting to the playoffs? You still have Tampa Bay, which is always just one of, oh my goodness. You still have Tampa Bay.
Hard.
Yeah, he is working hard.
We had a little spillage.
Right. Just Tampa Bay, where they've year in, year out, it's kind of like, all right, and then Baker Mayfield situation, all of that stuff, it's still kind of up in the air there. And even though Atlanta did add Kevin Stefanski, who I think is a fantastic coach, it's still Atlanta. The Atlanta Falcons still figuring out what they have at quarterback with Michael Penix.
And a whole new era
and a whole
there.
just a whole new thing there. This, if you're the Saints, and whether you're a free agent or just on this team and going through this division last year, I think part of the reason why you feel so confident, feel so great going into this year is because you have a realistic chance of winning this division and getting to the playoffs.
Yeah, becomes a big part of it. This is a team that it was Mickey Loomis at the end of the season last year talking about how they just, hey, look, we don't want to dominate. I mean, we don't want to win the division. We want to dominate the division. And it's like, oh, gosh, I haven't heard Mickey talk like that in years.
Because he knows that it's possible that they can get in this position.
By the way, very nice way to describe the NFC South.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Team by team, there's a lot of issues.
Very nice.
Yes.
All right, I'll do mine real quick before we taste a drink because mine will go quick. But I'm going to stick with, I've been talking about running backs for the past little bit here. I'm going to stick with that and go on the positive side. Travis Etienne Jr. is a home run hitter for this team. He's a humongous addition for this offense, which can be a big-time asset that'll help Tyler Shuck. The Saints in the last 4 years have had 23 rushes of 20 or more yards as a team. Over the course of that same span, Travis Etienne Jr. has had 23 runs of 20 or more yards over the course of the last 4 years. He's going to be somebody that's going to be able to help to create some of those explosive opportunities for the offense.
Needed, and do you need any more assistance? You
good?
I'm just clumsy. I mean, what can you say? But it doesn't look bad. Look, I'm not great with garnish, but we got a little piece of cute, little slice of cucumber on top.
I got you.
Let's taste.
All right, let's go.
Boop. It's for the bartender.
I get the cucumber. I like it.
I like
The cucumber, it's accentuated, and I think it's because you did a fantastic job muddling.
I did some muddling.
This is awesome.
Yeah, this is
a great drink.
This feels.
Oh my
This
goodness.
feels like a summer drink.
It really kind of does. I didn't know if the Irish whiskey would work with kind of the floral things, but it kind of did. Look, all right, my last call is simple, and it's Chase Young, and it's 100% about Chase Young. I think Chase Young, obviously he's the guy, he was a breakout season last season. He was unbelievably good, and the Saints need him. They did not upgrade at pass rusher. They need him to be that guy again, and just his level of buy-in.
Yeah.
Every time I looked at him, he's running full speed at everything in a way that is super encouraging. He's encouraging guys, running on the field, giving guys high five. He's taken a whole different role. This was a guy, I don't want to say he had a checkered past, but, in Washington, they didn't love him a whole lot. He didn't make a big impact in San Francisco, but he's got the second pick in the draft, in the Heisman Trophy finalist. Like, this is a guy with that ability that I think now is comfortable. He feels great, and he's on the cusp of doing something big. And just watching him, he's a cut above with a chance to get better. I think at some point they're going to have to get him more help. But I love what I see out of him at this point.
He felt like he was more guarded when he first got here.
He was very guarded.
It's rough.
Very guarded.
The confidence I was talking about from last year, I feel like he is a big recipient of that, and I think it's going to serve him well this year. As long as he stays healthy, think he could have a huge season.
Yeah.
I think so, too.
I think so, too.
No,
And
I
I hope
think
that
so.
we have
3.
served you well with great Saints information in today's episode of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, right?
Yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.